The last Apache woman on the auction block, until a stranger paid to set her free. The sun was already high in the sky when the small group of people arrived at the camp. Dust rose under their boots and followed them like a cloud. The air was hot and dry, and the land looked empty. The camp was not a place anyone would choose to live. It was a temporary shelter made of worn-out tents and small wooden huts. The fences were weak, and the ground was hard. In the middle of this camp stood a woman. She was not young, but not old either. She looked tired. Her hair was long and dark, but it was messy and unclean. Her clothes were simple and torn. She did not wear any jewelry. Her face was calm, but her eyes were heavy. They looked like they had seen too much. Some people in the camp whispered about her, but she did not answer them. She stood quietly as if she had learned to stay silent. They called her the last Apache woman. No one knew her real name anymore. Even if someone remembered it, no one used it. Her name had been taken away long ago, along with her home, her family, and her people. Now she was just a label, a story that people told. The settlers in the nearby towns spoke about her as if she was a mystery. Some people said she was strong. Others said she was dangerous. But no one really knew her. The camp was full of people who had lost their homes. Many of them had been forced to leave their land and move to places they did not want to go. They had been told to live in a small area, far from their villages and far from the places they loved. They had been told they were not allowed to leave. The camp was crowded and quiet because everyone was afraid. They did not know what would happen next. The woman had been brought here after a long journey. She had walked for many days, along dusty roads and through rough lands. She had been watched by soldiers and guards. She had not been allowed to speak with others. She had been told to keep moving, to stay silent, and to obey. The first day she arrived at the camp, she did not cry. She did not scream. She simply stood there and looked at the new place. Her face did not show fear. It did not show anger. It was like she had already accepted that this was her life now. She had learned to be quiet because she knew that talking would not change anything. The people in the camp tried to help each other, but they were also afraid. There were no leaders, no strong voices. Everyone was too tired to argue. The women tried to cook meals, but there was not enough food. The children played quietly, as if they were afraid of making noise. The men stood in small groups, talking in low voices. Everyone was watching the soldiers and guards, because they knew that any mistake could cause trouble. The woman did not join the groups. She stayed alone. She did not talk to anyone. She did not smile. She did not show any emotion. The other people in the camp watched her, but they also kept their distance. They were not sure if she was safe to be around. They did not know if she would bring trouble or if she needed help. Sometimes a few people would come close to her. They would offer her a piece of bread or a cup of water. She would take it without saying thank you. She would eat slowly and quietly. She would drink slowly, as if she was trying to save every drop. Then she would walk away. She had learned to be careful. She had learned that being kind could sometimes bring danger. She had learned that trust was dangerous in a world where people could be cruel. She had learned that the only safe way to live was to keep her thoughts to herself. One day a man came to the camp. He was not a soldier. He was not a guard. He was a trader. He had a small wagon filled with items he wanted to sell. He had shiny objects, clothes, tools, and other goods. He was tall and confident. His boots were clean, and his hat was new. He walked like he owned the world. The people in the camp watched him carefully. They did not trust him. They knew that traders could be dangerous. They could take advantage of people who were weak and hungry. They could trick them, cheat them, or even take them away. The trader did not look at the people in the camp like they were humans. He looked at them like they were objects. He was interested in their stories, not their lives. He wanted to know what he could sell and what he could gain. He wanted to find something that would make him money. When he saw the woman, his eyes changed. He stopped walking. He stared at her for a moment. He looked her up and down like he was checking her value. He had heard about her before. Everyone in the area had heard the stories. He had heard that she was the last Apache woman. He had heard that she was rare and unusual. He had heard that some people would pay a lot of money just to see her. The trader smiled. He walked closer to her. The woman did not move. She did not show fear. She did not react. She simply looked at him with quiet eyes. The trader spoke to her, but she did not understand him. He spoke in a language she did not know. He pointed to his wagon and tried to show her his items. He offered her food and water, but she did not take it. She kept her distance. The trader was not used to being ignored. He was used to people listening to him. He was used to people wanting what he had. He was used to being respected. But this woman did not care about him. She did not care about his money or his goods. She did not care about his power. He felt angry. He felt insulted. He wanted to control her. He wanted to show her that he was the one in charge. He wanted to prove that she was not above him. So he did something that shocked the people in the camp. He went to the guards and told them that he wanted to buy the woman. He said he wanted to take her away from the camp. He said he wanted to take her to a place where she could be seen by people in the town. The guards listened. They did not argue. They did not care about the woman's feelings. They only cared about money. They only cared about orders. They had been told that the woman was no longer free. They had been told that she belonged to the government, and that the government could do what it wanted with her. The people in the camp watched in silence. Some of them were shocked. Some of them were scared. Some of them felt a small, quiet anger. They knew that the woman was being treated like an object. They knew that she was being taken away from her home again, just like the others. But they did not speak up. They did not try to stop it. They were too afraid. They were too tired. They were too weak. The trader returned to the woman. He looked at her again, as if he was choosing something from a store. He did not care that she was a human being. He did not care that she had feelings. He only cared that she was valuable. The woman did not cry. She did not scream. She did not fight. She simply stood there and let them take her. She had learned that fighting would not help. It would only bring more trouble. She had learned that surviving meant staying quiet and moving forward, no matter how hard it was. And so, the last Apache woman was taken from the camp. She was led away in silence while the people watched and waited for the next day, the next moment, the next event that would change their lives. She did not know where she was going. She did not know what would happen to her. She only knew that her life had changed again, and that she was once more being treated as something that could be bought and sold. The town was not far from the camp, but it felt like another world. The road leading to it was wide and dusty. On both sides of the road there were wooden buildings and fences. The air smelled like horses and wood smoke. People moved quickly, as if they had places to be and time to spare. The town was noisy. There were voices, laughter, and the sound of tools. It was a busy place, full of people who believed they controlled everything. The woman had never been to a town like this. She had lived in the open land, where the sky was wide and the wind was free. She had lived near rivers and mountains. She had lived where the air was clean and the night was full of stars. Here, the buildings were close together. The sky felt smaller. The air felt heavy. She was not brought to the town as a guest. She was brought there as something else, something the people in the town could look at. She was brought there to be a story, a show, and a prize. When they arrived, the trader led her through the street. People stared. Some stopped what they were doing to look at her. Some pointed. Some whispered to each other. They looked at her like she was strange or unusual. They did not see a woman. They saw a story they had heard, a rumor that now stood in front of them. The woman walked carefully. She kept her head down. She did not want to attract more attention. She did not want to give them a reason to laugh. She did not want to give them a reason to think she was a threat. She wanted to disappear into the crowd, but she knew that was impossible. The town was watching. They took her to a small building in the center of town. It was a place where people gathered. It was not a house. It was not a store. It was a building where the town's men met to talk about business and money. It was a place where the trader felt comfortable. It was a place where he could show her off without anyone stopping him. Inside the building, the air was cooler. The room was filled with men. Dow. They were dressed in clean clothes. They had hats and boots. Some had watches. Some had rings. They looked like they were important. They looked like they owned the town. The trader walked in and spoke loudly. He called out to the men. He said, "Here she is." He said it like he was showing them a new item in his shop. The men turned and looked at her. The room became quiet. The woman stood still. She did not move. She did not speak. She did not show any expression. She had learned that showing emotion could bring trouble. She had learned that silence could keep her safe. The men stared at her. They did not understand her. They did not know her language. They did not know her story. They only knew what they had been told. They knew she was an Apache woman. They knew she was the last of her people. They knew she was rare. The trader began to speak. He talked about her as if she was an object. He described her clothes, her hair, her face. He described her as wild and beautiful. He said she was worth a lot of money. He said someone could make a fortune by having her. The men listened. Some of them laughed. Some of them nodded. Some of them whispered to each other. They were excited. They were interested. They were ready to buy. The woman listened too, but she did not understand. The words did not matter to her. What mattered was the feeling in the room, the feeling of being watched, the feeling of being judged, the feeling of being owned. The trader started the auction. He held up a small wooden board with numbers on it. He raised his hand and shouted, "Who will start the bidding?" He waited, smiling, as if he was starting a game. A man in the back raised his hand. He spoke loudly and offered a small amount of money. The trader smiled. He nodded. Then another man raised his hand and offered more. The bidding continued. The woman stood quietly as the numbers grew. She did not know what the numbers meant. She did not know what they were buying. She only knew that she was being treated like something that could be sold. She felt the room's energy grow stronger. The men were excited. They were competing. Some men spoke about her like she was a prize. They said things like, "Imagine having her at my home." They said, "She would be a story to tell." They spoke about her as if she was a toy. They did not think about her feelings. They did not think about her life. They only thought about the value she had for them. The woman's heart felt heavy. She tried to stay calm. She tried to stay quiet. She tried to make herself small. She wanted to disappear, but she could not. Then the trader called out the final number. He brought down his gavel. The room fell silent. "Sold," he said. The woman had been sold to the highest bidder. The man who bought her was a wealthy rancher. He was tall and strong. He wore a clean shirt and a large hat. He had a confident smile. He looked like he was used to getting what he wanted. He walked forward and looked at the woman as if she was a new item he had just purchased. The rancher did not speak to her. He did not ask her name. He did not ask if she wanted to go with him. He did not ask anything. He only looked at her like she was a thing he owned. The woman felt a cold feeling inside her. She felt like her life had been taken from her again. She felt like she was a shadow of her former self. She had already lost her home, her family, and her people. Now she had lost her freedom. The rancher turned to the trader and handed him the money. The trader smiled. He counted the coins. He was happy. He had made a profit. He had sold something rare. He had made money. The men in the room clapped and laughed. They congratulated the rancher. They told him he had made a smart decision. They said he was lucky. They said he would be the talk of the town. The woman did not clap. She did not laugh. But she did not speak. She simply stood there, waiting. The rancher motioned for her to follow him. She walked behind him, keeping her head down. She did not know where she was going. She did not know what would happen next. She only knew that she was not in control of her life. As they left the building, the people in the town stared again. Some followed them. Some whispered. Some pointed. The woman felt the weight of their eyes on her. She felt like she was being carried by a story. The rancher led her to his wagon. The wagon was large and strong. It was pulled by 2 horses. The horses looked healthy and well-fed. The rancher climbed into the wagon and turned to her. "Come on," he said. The woman did not answer. She did not know his language well enough to respond. She only nodded slightly and climbed into the wagon. The wagon moved slowly. The town disappeared behind them. The road stretched ahead. The land looked empty again. The sky was wide again. The woman sat quietly in the wagon. She watched the world move around her. She thought about her life. She thought about her people. She thought about the open land she used to live on. She thought about the rivers and mountains. She thought about the nights filled with stars. She wondered if she would ever see those places again. She wondered if she would ever feel free again. She wondered if anyone would ever remember her name. She did not cry. She did not scream. She did not fight. She had learned that the best way to survive was to stay calm. She had learned that emotions could be dangerous. She had learned that the world was not kind to her. The wagon moved forward, and the woman's future moved with it. She did not know what awaited her, but she knew one thing clearly. She was no longer in control. She was no longer free. She was no longer a person in the eyes of the people who had bought her, and so she began the next chapter of her life, one that would test her patience, her strength, and her hope. The ranch was far from the town, hidden behind a row of tall trees. It was a large place with open fields, fences, and a few buildings made of wood. The rancher lived there with his family and a few workers. The air was different here. It was quiet, except for the sound of animals and the wind in the trees. It felt like a place that belonged to someone, a place where everything had rules. The woman was brought to the ranch in the early morning. The sun was still low, and the light was soft. She could see the land stretching out for miles. She could see the animals moving in the fields. She could see the workers going about their tasks. It looked peaceful, but she knew that peace did not always mean safety. When the wagon stopped, the rancher stepped down and looked at her. He did not smile. He did not show kindness. He simply pointed toward a small building near the edge of the ranch. "This is where you will stay," he said. The woman looked at the building. It was a small cabin with a simple door and a few windows. It was not a home. It was a place to sleep. It was a place to stay away from the rancher's family. It was a place where no one would think about her. She walked toward the cabin slowly. Her feet felt heavy. Her heart felt heavy too. She wanted to turn back, but she knew she could not. She had no choice. She had been bought. She was not free. The rancher followed her. He opened the door and pushed her inside. The cabin was small and empty. There was a bed with a thin blanket. There was a small table and a chair. There was a window that looked out onto the fields. The floor was dusty, and the air smelled like old wood. The rancher did not stay long. He told her that she could stay there and that she would work for him. He did not explain what kind of work. He did not ask if she understood. He did not ask if she agreed. He only said what he wanted, and then he left. The woman stood in the cabin for a moment. She looked around. She tried to understand what her life would be like. She tried to imagine the days ahead. She tried to imagine how she would survive. Then she heard a sound outside. It was a voice. It was a woman's voice. Someone was calling her name. She turned and walked toward the door. She opened it slowly. A woman stood outside, holding a basket of food. She was not a worker. She was not the rancher's wife. She looked like a neighbor or a helper. The woman looked at the new woman with a calm expression. She did not stare. She did not whisper. She did not judge. She simply held out the basket. "I brought you some food," she said. The woman did not understand the words, but she understood the meaning. She understood that someone was trying to help her. She stepped forward and took the basket. The basket was filled with bread, fruits, and a small jar of milk. The woman's hands shook slightly. She held the basket carefully, like it was a gift she did not deserve. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was quiet, but the sound of it felt strong. The neighbor woman nodded. She smiled gently. "You can stay here," she said. "If you need anything, come to me." The woman did not know what to say. She had not expected kindness. She had not expected anyone to care about her. She had been treated like an object for so long that the idea of someone offering help felt strange. The neighbor woman left, and the woman stood alone again. She looked at the basket of food. She felt a small warmth in her chest. She felt a small hope. She felt a small reminder that not everyone was cruel. The days at the ranch began to feel long. The woman was given tasks to do, but she was not told clearly what they were. She was expected to work, and she was expected to work quickly. She was expected to follow orders. She was expected to be quiet. She woke up early each morning. She cleaned the cabin. She carried water from a well. She fed the animals. She cleaned the tools. She cooked meals. She washed clothes. She did everything that was needed on the ranch, but she was not paid. She was not thanked. She was not treated like a person. The rancher's family lived in a larger house near the center of the ranch. They had comfortable rooms, clean clothes, and warm beds. They had food and water. They had the freedom to move around and do what they wanted. The woman watched them from a distance, and she wondered why her life was so different. Sometimes, the rancher would speak to her. He would give her a short order, like, "Do this," or "Go there." He would speak in a rough voice, like he was annoyed. He would not look at her like a human being. He would look at her like a tool. The woman did not respond. She did not argue. She did not show anger. She had learned that arguing would not help. It would only make her life harder. She had learned that survival meant quiet obedience. At night, she would sit by the window and watch the stars. The sky was wide and clear, and the stars looked bright. She thought about her people. She thought about the stories her grandmother used to tell. She thought about the songs and dances. She thought about the times when her people lived freely in the open land. She missed her home. She missed the feeling of being part of a community. She missed the warmth of her family. She missed the sound of her language. The days passed slowly, but the woman continued to work. She continued to stay quiet. She continued to survive. One afternoon, the neighbor woman came again. She stood at the cabin door and looked inside. She held a small cloth bag in her hand. "I brought you some clothes," she said. The woman looked at the bag. She felt surprised. She had not expected anyone to care about her needs. The neighbor woman walked closer and placed the bag on the table. She looked at the woman with kind eyes. "These are old clothes," she said. "They are not new, but they will keep you warm." The woman opened the bag. Inside were a few pieces of clothing. They were simple but clean. They were not the same style as her own clothes, but they were better than what she had. She looked at the neighbor woman and nodded. "Thank you," she said again. The neighbor woman smiled. "You are not alone," she said. The woman felt her heart soften. She felt a small sense of comfort. She felt a small sense of hope. The neighbor woman left, and the woman sat alone again. She looked at the clothes and thought about what the neighbor woman had said. "You are not alone." For the first time in a long time, she felt like those words might be true, but she also knew that she was still not free. She knew that she was still living in a place where her life belonged to someone else. She knew that she was still being treated like an object. She thought about her future. She thought about the possibility of escape. She thought about running away. She thought about going back to her people, but she knew that running away was dangerous. She knew that she did not have a safe place to go. She knew that she could be caught. So she stayed. She worked. She waited. She did not know when her life would change. She did not know if she would ever be free again. She did not know if anyone would ever come to help her, but she held on to the small hope that the neighbor woman had given her. She held on to the idea that not everyone was cruel. She held on to the idea that there might still be kindness in the world, and so she continued to live at the ranch, doing what she was told, staying quiet and hoping for a day when she would be free again. The days at the ranch had begun to feel almost the same. The woman woke up early, worked hard, and returned to her small cabin. She washed, cooked, cleaned, and cared for the animals. She kept her head down, and her words few. She tried not to attract attention. She tried to stay safe. But one morning, everything changed. A stranger arrived at the ranch. He was not a worker. He was not a neighbor. He was not someone the woman had seen before. He rode into the ranch on a horse. He wore simple clothes, but they were clean. He carried a small bag and a notebook. His face was calm, but his eyes looked curious. The rancher saw him first. The rancher walked out to meet him. The two men spoke for a moment. The stranger asked questions, and the rancher answered quickly. The woman watched from the window, but she could not hear what they were saying. After a short time, the rancher returned to the house. He looked at the woman and said, "A man is here. He wants to see you." The woman felt her heart beat faster. She did not know why. She did not know who this man was. She did not know what he wanted. She felt nervous, but also curious. She walked out of the cabin slowly. She looked at the stranger. He stood near the house, waiting quietly. He did not look like a person who wanted trouble. He looked calm and polite. The stranger spoke gently. "Hello," he said. "My name is Thomas. I heard about you." The woman did not understand his words at first. The words were in a language she did not know well. She looked at him with a confused expression. Thomas noticed her confusion. He smiled kindly and spoke slower. He pointed to himself and said, "Thomas." Then he pointed to her and asked, "Your name?" The woman did not answer. She did not know what to say. She had not been asked her name in a long time. She had not been treated like a person with a name. Thomas saw her silence and did not push. He continued softly, "I came because I heard you were here. I wanted to see you." The woman looked at him. She did not know what to think. She did not trust him. She had learned that strangers could be dangerous. She had learned that people could lie. She had learned that hope could be used against her. But something about Thomas felt different. He did not look like someone who wanted to hurt her. He did not look like someone who wanted to own her. He looked like someone who wanted to help. Thomas spoke again. "I am not here to take you away without permission," he said. "I am here because I want to help you." The woman's eyes widened slightly. She felt a small flicker of hope, but she did not let herself believe it yet. She had been disappointed too many times. Thomas continued, "I am not a rich man. I am not a powerful man. But I have heard about your story. I heard you were bought at an auction. I heard you were being treated unfairly." The woman listened carefully. She did not understand all the words, but she understood the meaning. She understood that someone had heard her story. She understood that someone knew she was not being treated well. Thomas took out a small notebook from his bag. He opened it and showed her a few notes. The notes were written in simple words. He had written down information about her story, about the auction, and about the ranch. The woman looked at the notebook. She felt surprised. She did not know why someone would write about her. She did not know why someone would care. Thomas looked at her with gentle eyes. "I want to help you," he said again. "But I need to know if you want help. If you want to be free." The woman looked down. She thought about her life. She thought about the hard work. She thought about the loneliness. She thought about the fear. She thought about the feeling of being owned. She also thought about the danger of trusting someone. She thought about the possibility that Thomas could be like the others. She thought about the possibility that he could take advantage of her. She stayed silent for a moment. Then she looked up and nodded slightly. She did not say the word yes, but her eyes showed it. Thomas smiled gently. He seemed relieved. He nodded, too. He asked her a few more questions. He asked about the rancher. He asked about her daily life. He asked about the rules. He asked about the people who lived nearby. He asked about the best time to leave. But the woman answered as best as she could. She used simple words. She used gestures. She pointed to places. She showed him the path to the road. She showed him where the guards were. She showed him where the neighbor woman lived. Thomas listened carefully. He wrote everything down in his notebook. He did not rush. He did not push. He was patient. After a while, Thomas closed his notebook and stood up. He looked at the woman and said, "I will come back soon." The woman watched him ride away. She felt a strange mix of emotions. She felt hope, but also fear. She felt excited, but also nervous. She did not know what would happen next. That night, the woman could not sleep. She sat by the window and watched the stars. She thought about Thomas. She thought about the possibility of freedom. She thought about what it would mean to leave the ranch. She thought about the neighbor woman and the small kindness she had shown. She thought about the fact that not everyone was cruel. She thought about the idea that there might still be good people in the world. The next day, Thomas returned to the ranch. This time, he brought a small bag with him. The bag had food, water, and a few small items. He also brought a small amount of money. The rancher was not happy to see him. The rancher asked Thomas why he was there. Thomas replied calmly, "I am here to see the woman again." The rancher frowned. He did not like the idea of someone visiting the woman. He did not like the idea of someone caring about her. He did not like the idea of anyone thinking she had value beyond work. But Thomas did not back down. He spoke politely but firmly. "I want to help her," he said. The rancher looked at him suspiciously. He did not trust Thomas. He did not trust anyone who did not agree with him. He did not like being questioned. Thomas looked at the rancher and said, "I am willing to pay you." The rancher's eyes widened. He looked surprised. He asked, "Pay me for what?" Thomas replied, "Pay you to set her free." The rancher stared at him for a moment. He did not speak. He looked at the woman, then back at Thomas. He seemed to be thinking. He seemed to be considering the offer. The woman stood quietly, watching the men. She did not know what would happen. She did not know if Thomas would be able to help her. She did not know if the rancher would accept the offer. Then the rancher spoke. "How much?" he asked. Thomas took out the money and showed it. It was more than what the rancher had paid at the auction. It was a large amount. The rancher's eyes lit up. He looked pleased. The rancher nodded slowly. He looked at the woman and said, "You are free." The woman felt a rush of emotion. She did not know how to react. She did not know if she should believe it. She did not know if she should trust Thomas. She did not know if this was real. Thomas stepped forward and gently said, "Come with me. I will take you away from here." The woman looked at him. She took a deep breath. She looked at the rancher, then at the land around her. She thought about everything she had been through. She thought about the life she had lived. She thought about the life she could have. Then she nodded. She stepped forward and followed Thomas. The rancher watched them leave. He did not stop them. He did not speak. He simply watched as the woman walked away from the ranch for the first time in a long time. The woman did not know what the future would bring. She did not know where Thomas would take her. She did not know if she would ever find a place to call home again. But she knew one thing clearly. She was no longer owned. She was no longer a possession. She was no longer a prize. She was free. The road was long and dusty, but it felt different now. The woman walked beside Thomas, and the air seemed lighter. The sky looked brighter. The wind felt gentler. It was as if the world had changed, simply because she was no longer owned by someone else. Thomas walked calmly, not rushing. He did not force her to move faster. He did not speak loudly or push her. He walked beside her, like a person walking with a friend. He carried a small bag with supplies, and he offered her water when she looked tired. The woman did not know much about him, but she could feel that he was kind. As they walked, Thomas spoke softly. He asked her simple questions. He asked about her life. He asked about her family. He asked about her people. He asked about what she missed. The woman did not know how to answer at first. She had not spoken about her past in a long time. She had kept her memories inside her, like a hidden treasure. But Thomas was patient. He did not push. He waited for her to speak when she was ready. After some time, she began to talk. She told him about her home, about the open land, about the rivers and mountains. She told him about the songs and stories of her people. She told him about her family and the times they spent together. Her voice was quiet, but the words were strong. It was as if her memories were coming back to life. Thomas listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He did not judge. He only listened. When she finished speaking, she looked at him. She did not know what to say next. She felt both happy and sad. Happy because she was finally free. Sad because she had lost so much. Thomas nodded gently. "You have a strong heart," he said. "You have been through so much." The woman looked at him, surprised. She had not heard anyone say that to her before. She had not heard anyone notice her strength. She had only heard people talk about her as a story or a prize. Thomas continued, "I want to help you find a place where you can live, a place where you can feel safe, a place where you can be yourself." The woman felt a small hope. She did not know if such a place existed, but she wanted to believe it did. They walked for several days. They stopped in small towns and slept in simple inns. They ate simple meals. Thomas paid for everything. He never asked her for money. He never asked her for anything. He only asked her to stay safe. Along the way, the woman saw many different places. She saw fields full of crops. She saw rivers that flowed quietly. She saw mountains that stood tall. She saw people working and living. She saw children playing. She saw families laughing. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was part of the world again. She felt like she was not just a story. She felt like she was a person. But she also noticed that the world was not always kind. She saw people who looked at her strangely. She saw people who whispered. She saw people who did not trust her. She saw people who treated her like she was different. Thomas noticed it too. He noticed the way people stared. He noticed the way people kept their distance. He noticed the way some people spoke to her in a rough tone. He spoke to her about it one evening as they sat by a fire. "People will not always understand you," he said. "They may judge you. They may be afraid of you. But that does not mean you are not valuable." The woman listened. She nodded slowly. She understood what he meant. She had lived with judgment for so long. She had learned to ignore it. She had learned to survive despite it. Thomas continued, "I want to help you find a place where people will accept you, a place where you can live with peace." The woman thought about it. She thought about her people. She thought about the idea of returning to the land she once knew. She thought about the possibility of finding others who had been taken away. She thought about the idea of building a new life. She asked Thomas, "Can I go back to my people?" Thomas looked at her. He was quiet for a moment. He thought carefully about his answer. Then he said, "I do not know." but I will help you try." The woman felt her heart beat faster. She felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She did not know if she would find her people. She did not know if they were still alive. She did not know if they would accept her after all these years. But she wanted to try. They continued walking. They traveled to different places, asking questions. Thomas spoke with people who knew about the land and the tribes. He asked if anyone had seen the woman's people. He asked if anyone knew where they might be. Some people shook their heads. Some people did not know. Some people looked away. But Thomas did not give up. He continued searching. One day, they arrived at a small village near the edge of a large forest. The village was quiet. The people there lived simply. They welcomed travelers, they offered food and a place to rest. The woman felt something in her heart when she saw the forest. It reminded her of the land she once knew. It reminded her of the time she spent near trees and rivers. It reminded her of home. Thomas spoke with the village leader. He explained the woman's story. He asked if the village leader knew anything about her people. The leader listened carefully. He looked at the woman with respect. The leader said, "I have heard stories. I have heard about a group of people who moved north. They were looking for a new place to live. They wanted to be safe." The woman's heart jumped. She felt hope again. She felt a small spark of joy. She asked, "Where?" The leader looked at her and said, "They moved near the mountains. They were trying to find a place where no one would bother them." Thomas and the woman looked at each other. They both felt a new sense of purpose. They both felt that this could be the beginning of something important. They decided to travel toward the mountains. They continued their journey, moving carefully and slowly. They traveled through forests and across fields. They crossed small rivers. They slept under the stars. They kept their hope alive. Finally, after many days, they reached the mountains. The air was cooler. The land was quieter. The sky was clear. The woman felt her heart fill with emotion. She felt like she was getting closer to her past. She felt like she was getting closer to the part of her life that had been taken away. They walked deeper into the mountains. They followed a small path that led to a valley. The valley was peaceful. It was surrounded by trees and rocks. It was a place that felt like it belonged to the earth. As they entered the valley, the woman saw people in the distance. She saw figures moving among the trees. She saw people living simply. She saw a small community. Her heart raced. She felt her hands shake. She felt her breath catch. Thomas looked at her and asked softly, "Do you want to go closer?" The woman nodded. They walked slowly toward the community. The people stopped what they were doing and looked at them. The woman felt nervous. She felt unsure. She did not know how they would react. But then a woman stepped forward. She looked at the woman with a calm expression. She walked closer and said, "You're not alone." The woman's eyes filled with tears. She felt a rush of emotions. She felt relief. She felt sadness. She felt joy. She felt like her heart had found a missing piece. The woman did not know what the future would bring. She did not know if she would fully belong again. She did not know if her life would ever be the same. But she knew one thing. She had found hope. She had found a place where she could start again. And as she stood there, surrounded by people who looked like her, she realized that freedom was not just being released from a ranch. Freedom was being able to live with others, to share stories, and to feel like she belonged. She turned to Thomas and smiled. She did not need to say anything. He understood. Thomas nodded too. The woman had come a long way. She had survived. She had endured. She had hoped. And now she was finally free.